Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm Geoff Dover. With me is John Barban. Let's talk football.
All right, we got one game left here.
Super Bowl preview, baby.
Super Bowl preview. So before we get into like props and who we're picking and all that stuff, do you buy any of this chatter online that people are boycotting this Super Bowl?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't, especially this game. I mean, it's a good game. Like, it's two good teams.
Yeah, I know, but it's all of the people who think the NFL's rigged and just don't want to watch the Chiefs and all of that. I mean, I think it's all talk. I don't think anyone's going to not.
I think
watch.
when you have 2 weeks between the games, which is a long time, and so it gives more time for people to talk about stuff. And I don't necessarily think that, like, come Sunday, I'll be surprised that people choose to tune out.
Yeah.
So I mean, because the ratings are still going to be good, I think, no matter what. Yeah. I'll be shocked if they're down because of the concerted effort to, for that. So yeah, I don't think so. And I think we've talked about this before. It's hard to officiate the game well. It's hard to officiate it without, the subjectiveness of some of the penalties and everything. And so it leads to conspiracy talk. But at the end of the day, if you interviewed some of the players and were, like, as a team, you consciously made an effort, or the other team made an effort to do something versus, I just think it's ridiculous. So
yeah, no, it's just chatter amongst people who bother to. So, like I saw, I don't know, there was a Instagram account that has some kind of NFL football Instagram account, and it has 50,000-60,000 followers or whatever it was, and they did a little survey asking, do you think the NFL's rigged? And they came up with like 70% of their people said they think it's rigged. Wow. So whether, again, that's a tiny sample of just one little group of people who bothered to respond. I don't know how many respondents there were, but just the fact that sentiment exists at all is not good for the NFL. Like,
and I'm a little surprised that it's happening in the NFL. Like, there's been point shaving stuff in basketball. Because like one player out of 5 makes a big difference. But I just don't know how you would really do that in a football setting. I mean, I guess you could, if they got to the running back or something and then you choose to fumble, I guess maybe, but I don't know. I just think the penalties are, you don't want to be known as a fumbling running back. Like, that's bad. Like, if a basketball player is 15 points instead of 25 points one game, that's nothing. But it's you have 2 fumbles in the Super Bowl or something, that'd be really bad. So you'll be remembered for that. Like, it's
and you're bringing up the key point here. To rig a game, the refs can't just do it with close calls. Like all these close calls people think are always going the Chiefs' way at key points of the game. That's not how you rig a game. You rig like you actually have to cause a score. Like, you have to fumble it through your own end zone. Like, it has to be really egregious to for sure have the game come out the way you want. It can't just be like that worthy, did he catch it or not? It's like the odds of those moments happening enough for you to always get it to go your way. It doesn't, I don't know. It would have to be more egregious than what's going on. I get it. No one wants to see the same team win over and over again. Like, everyone hated watching Brady win over and over and over again. And I'm sure Chiefs fans, you'd be lying if you said, he was just great, we appreciated it. Bullshit. You hated it. Like, you hated it. Chiefs fans who respond to our channel hated it, and now just appreciate the fact that everyone hates your team for being the new Dynasty, which is fine. That's what it means to be on top, right? And on top consistently. Like, no one hates the team that gets there once and then disappears. It's the team that's there constantly, because it kills everyone else's team's hope. Like, all the other fans' hope. But I don't think it's fixed, but it doesn't even matter if it's not. It matters if there's an amount of fans that think it is. But only matters if they stop watching.
Right.
So
I think that I've really come around on it, because I was like you. I was ready for a different team, or someone to do. But Kansas City's played really well, and they've beaten really good teams. They deserve to be here, and now it's like, what, if they beat Philly, they deserve to win 3 in a row. So it's never happened before, and that's historic, and that's something. And there's been runs like this in every other sport, like where there's been a one team wins, goes on a heavy run, and it happens less now because of how the way rosters are constructed and collective bargaining and stuff.
I think it's the same as it's always been.
No. I think back, like in the 60s and stuff, there's teams that won, like, were at least went to the finals like 8 years in a row and won 6 out of 8. And So that happened in the...
How many Super Bowls do you think this is for Mahomes?
6, maybe?
Out of what, 8 years? It's kind of a lot.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, it happens less, as I guess what I was going to say. But and I've been come around. I'm excited to see them. They've been playing well. And what I've found interesting is that they're doing it differently. So it used to be really high scoring offense and the defense just tried to keep minute kind of thing. And now the defense is the dominant side of the ball for Kansas City. And it's really impressive that they're winning that way now.
Yeah. I was watching Todd McShay's show. He's actually really good for draft stuff and just roster construction. Like he does he was doing an evaluation of the Senior Bowl and the East-West game, but he pointed out that the model for the NFL now, again, it hinges on having the quarterback. But if you're one of the, 8 or 9 teams that have what seems to be a Super Bowl good enough quarterback, the rest of the roster, you have to focus on defense. And that's basically what the Chiefs have done. I mean, after they got Mahomes, he was reviewing a number of drafts after that, and they just loaded up on defense and kept loading up on defense. And I think now it's obvious how good the defense is, but only to this point of this season. No one was really talking about the Chiefs defense. Now, Chiefs fans, obviously you knew, but 3 and 4 years ago, no one was talking about this defense that's been being built into this machine. And now it's sort of obvious. It's like, oh, right, this is a defensive led team. It's just constantly overshadowed by, I think, Mahomes, sort of in the consciousness of non-Chief fans in the national media. And it's still just not talked about the way the Ravens defense with Ray Lewis was talked about, or some other teams that were like the Bucks defense when they won the Super Bowl. It was just so obvious, like, oh, this is the defensive led team. But that's what this is. This is 100%. But the key here, and McShay brought it up, he's like a game-changing quarterback, like a Mahomes or an Allen or those type of guys, can mask deficiencies on the offense, which he is doing. Their run game is nothing to shout about. Their receiving core just seems like you can put anyone in there. You don't need, obviously, with or without Tyreek Hill, they can win. So you didn't need the best receiver. It was they had him, but they didn't need him because when he left, they just kept winning. So a quarterback that good compensates for missing pieces. To be fair, you do have Kelsey, so there is that overwhelming other piece, but it's not like they're just studded with pieces the way you'd say maybe the Lions are or something like that.
No, absolutely. No, and I think the good comparison was what the team you brought up earlier was the Patriots, right? Tom Brady was amazing. We commented this earlier this season about how there's new people coming in and out of that lineup. He was throwing to different receivers all the time, and the other thing that was consistent, their defense was really good. Right. Always. So, and similar to Kansas City, where Kansas City has a couple of dominant players, I guess you'd say, but like it's overall the defense is strong. You know what I mean? And then that's what reminds me of the Patriots defense too. Like as a team, they were really good, and it wasn't dominated by any one person. So, although Jones is really good, and then Karlaftis looks like he's been shot out of a cannon the last couple of games.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, I mean, like that. So that's it. I think that's exactly the blueprint, right? They've loaded. Also, the only thing I'll say too is that, like, so like you said, they had Mahomes and they started drafting all the defensive players. The defense was the only thing that was weak on the team at that point. So it sort of makes sense that they were drafting defensive players at that point to make the defense better. Now, it's not. They haven't abandoned drafting people for the offense because they did get Worthy, but like it was most of the picks went to defense, and that was the weakest part, and they fixed it. So
and again, once you have the quarterback, you can do that. It's some of these other teams watching them flounder for 20 years, like constantly trying to get another quarterback. I mean, I still think, obviously you need some kind of balance, but when you have that overwhelming talent at quarterback, maybe once you realize you have that, you can change slightly how you do things. You don't necessarily need to load up on the 2 best offensive tackles and go all out on so many other pieces when, you got that person can compensate for a while and you can build basically a Super Bowl caliber defense.
Kind of reminds me of the Bills too, right? Allen's really good. And this year, everyone was really worried about the talent and stuff going into the season. And
they were fine.
Because he overcomes a lot of deficiencies. So,
and the other thing is Spagnuolo's just so good.
He's been really good for a long time.
Probably the best right now. He's just out game planning people, especially at the end of the game when it matters.
Yeah,
it's that again that another parallel with the Patriots because Belichick was the smartest defensive coach the whole time. So you have the best quarterback plus the smartest defensive coordinator and a good defense is the model now. That's just what it is. And with that said, the Eagles now have a complete defense. They picked up some key pieces in the offseason. Bond is a revelation. And some of the cornerbacks they picked turned out to be fit the little holes that they still might have had on defense.
And the defensive line was unbelievable.
Well, they just load up on Georgia Bulldogs seems to be the answer there, and that seemed to work. God, those guys are freaks. The other interesting note is, I would say, do you want to do like what units and what, who's got what better units right now?
Sure.
All right. Interestingly, I'd say the Chiefs have the best single player on offense and the best single player on defense. So, but
who's your defensive person? Jones?
Chris Jones is better than anyone on. Put it this way: you would anybody on the Eagles would be replaced with Chris Jones immediately, but you would never replace Chris Jones with anything on the Eagles.
Yeah, he's for defensive line. I mean, I think
for defensive line.
Yeah, like for defensive line. Like I think some of their Eagles, like you said, the secondary or the linebackers, I think are outstanding. But it's yeah, I'll give you that.
He's the single best. I think the Eagles line as a unit might be overall better, but he's the single best player on the defensive line.
Yeah, no, on the defensive line, you're right about that. It was,
and then they might have the best cornerback, McDuffie. Even though the Eagles have majorly upgraded there. So they oddly have a couple of the best players. But I think as a unit, maybe I would think the Eagles defensive line might be a better total unit. But the defenses are right there. I would say they're almost the same. I don't see like any major advantage one way or the other on the defenses. They're both really good.
Yeah.
And as good as Barkley is, I'll still give the edge as who's got the single best offensive player. Obviously, it's Mahomes, and he has the ball in his hands every play, whereas Barkley can only influence the game when it's handed to him. So he's of limited impact when you compare him to a quarterback. The quarterback is just going to influence the game more no matter what.
I'm just looking at sort of seeing if I could put an argument together for the better defensive player other than Chris Jones. Zach Bond is the middle linebacker for the Eagles, had 151 tackles this season, which is amazing.
Okay, but careful now. You're comparing Bond to Jones. No.
I know, but I'm just saying in terms of a quality defensive player, like it's
he was one of the biggest upgrades they made.
Yeah.
I mean, he was awesome.
3.5 sacks, 11 tackles for a loss.
Yeah.
Like
he doesn't change. He doesn't force the other team to change how they play. Jones does.
Yeah, fair enough.
So he's just one of those type of players. But in general, the defenses are both really, really good. I mean, it's kind of not possible to get here with a bad defense. So as far as offensive unit, which not single player, but total offense, which one do you think do you just
that
like
one's
better?
Really tough. I don't like it. So what was so you think that whose defense is better overall, Kansas City or Philly?
I mean, I would give the edge to Kansas City.
Would you?
But it's like right there. We're talking 1-1A. The way Philly's playing this year, and with all those pieces that have been added at the beginning of the year, we didn't know because their defense was a liability, or it was part of what was holding them back last year.
Right.
But this year, their defense has been great. So it's not that anymore. It's just if I had to bet on one of the two defenses to steal the game, I would bet on the Chiefs defense to steal the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason why I think this game is so even, like, because there's not a huge margin either way. Like, so they're two really good teams. Both defenses are excellent. Both offenses have some limitations. So it's really tough to say. I think that, I think that it's really tough. I want to lean Philadelphia's defense a little bit better. I just think that some of the personnel and some of the impact plays they've made have been better, especially in the playoffs so far, but it's really close to Kansas City. Maybe an edge. And I'll say, just to be contrarian too, in terms of offense, I'll give the edge to Philly just because of the running game. So, because I think Barkley really makes a difference.
Yeah.
And having a dominant run game in football could potentially, over the course of a game be really important versus like a dynamic passing attack, which neither team is really experience this year. Now Mahomes is great, and he can, and if you're down by a score and you give him the ball at the end like that, he's going to get
he's
it.
Getting manufactured.
Yeah, he's going to get it. So it's, so it's not like they're a bad passing team, but it's, just in terms of stats and the overall offense, I'd probably give it to Philly. But man, it's close.
This is
the most excited I've been for a Super Bowl in some time. Like most of the time, it's like a heavily favored team, or it's sort of some sort of mismatch or something. But it's like two really good defenses. The offenses are okay. Good running game for Philly.
Well, they played one of the best Super Bowls ever the last time, a couple of years ago. So
Kansas City has Mahomes, so like it's a really good game. And it's
hopefully we get something that competitive again. I think so. I can't imagine this thing. The Chiefs just don't play blowout games, even though Philly just had one. There's just no way anyone's getting blown out in this game. Yeah. It's gonna be close. There's no lack of play calling ability on either side of the ball. So on either team.
Let's get into the prop bets, because I think this to me says more about how we think the game's going to go and stuff. So it's in terms of the line. What are you if you had to pick? This is Kansas City as of today. Is Kansas City minus 1.5?
Still, it hasn't changed. Yeah. I mean, this is just who you think's going to win,
basically.
I guess you would always take the points on a game like this when you think both teams are close. So I don't know. It's just whether or not. So I've won and lost betting. I've bet with Kansas City in the first round, and we threaded the needle. We nailed that bet, and then I missed the Bills one by a half a point, which I still think was the right bet. Yep. It would have been way better if it was 3, because a field goal. I think it was obvious to the world that was going to be a field goal or less game. Yeah. And that's exactly what had happened. I think this one will be that as well. Yeah. So who do you think's actually going to win? It's almost like I'm just betting on, are they going to complete the three-peat or not? Is the bet. And
yes. Yeah, I mean, I've bet against both these teams multiple times in the playoffs, so they're facing each other now in the Super Bowl. So it shows you how wrong I've been along.
See how reluctant I am. I don't know what to do here.
I'm going to go Kansas City. I was
going to say that too.
And I've bet against both teams multiple times. I've been burned by both teams multiple times. The one thing I told myself is that I'm not gonna. If I bet on Philly and they're ahead by 3 points in the fourth quarter, and Kansas City gets the ball, then I'm going to feel like an idiot when Mahomes drives the ball down and wins the game. So I will not do that. So for that reason alone, I'm going Kansas City minus the 1.5. We're maybe we'll see a historic three-peat, and good for them. Like, because they've done it differently than every other year they've done it before. So
and I think you're on the right side of it, only because given both teams are as even as they seem to be. Mm-hmm. In the end, I just think who's got the ball in their hands, Mahomes or Hurts.
Yeah.
And it's not like Hurts can't win a big game. It's just, if you have to put money on it, I put money on Mahomes over Hurts to win the biggest game. That's And then, until proven otherwise, it doesn't make sense to bet against him in a game this big with that spread. I mean, that's so tiny.
I know. No, I can't do it. And again, Philly's got a chance. Like, they really do. They could.
Oh yeah.
They establish the run, and and then they don't have to. The turnover is going to be big in this game. They're big in every game, but especially with these teams, I think it's going to be really important. And so if they can, Philly can run the ball and not turn it over, then that's going to be a big deal. Here, let's go.
Hang on. Let's focus on the turnovers there for a second, or do you want to? Okay.
No, go ahead.
In the playoffs, the Chiefs are -1 in turnovers, which I doubt will be keep happening here. Like, I doubt they're going to lose the or at least it would be surprising if they lose the turnover battle. And the Eagles were +10 in turnovers in 3 games. Now they have an extra game, right? So that number can get big, but +10 is like
that's
ridiculous.
A lot. Yeah,
it's not. They can't expect that to keep happening. No. Like, that's going to regress, I would assume, at some point here. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming they're both going to be a lot better with ball security in this game. So, I don't know. We'll see. But I can't. I mean, that's an X factor. If you do have a couple unfortunate turnovers, especially the one that the Chiefs had in the last game, just a muffed handoff. Like, that's not an effort thing. That's just I don't know if it's just a lack of reps at that play, or I don't know, just cold hands, whatever it is. Obviously, you can't account for turnovers. Sometimes they just happen, but I don't expect either team to shoot themselves in the foot with turnovers in this game.
Mm-hmm. There's so we'll officially place a bet on Kansas City minus the 1.5, just for our viewers to keep it legit. But I'll tell you about the other bet that I'll be doing, because with the this where I'm in Quebec, so the mise au jeu system, I can do like teasers and stuff. So the other thing I'm going to be placing is Kansas City plus 6.5 and over 41.5 points.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah. So it doesn't pay much. It's like $10 bet pays like $16 or something like that, but I'll take that because both those things I feel really comfortable with. So yeah. So
you can't lose teasers. You can't lose.
So I've always thought so.
Yeah.
So okay. So let's go. I want to show you. Let's talk about some of these things that I think that'll be interesting in terms of.
But you don't want to do the normal over under. You only like your teased over under.
No, not the 40. It's 48.5 now. I don't think I'm going to do anything with that. Okay. If you hold on, where's the one that was really interesting? Okay, so who's going to have more rushing yards, Mahomes or Hurts?
Oh, that's a tough one. Like head to head.
Yeah,
it's oh my god. I kind of want to say Mahomes.
Yeah, so it's favored that Hurts is going to have more rushing yards, but Mahomes pays 2-1, so that means you'll pay $10 bet, you'll get back $20. Mahomes have more rushing yards, so that pays a lot. So like that's That, so and because the actual rushing yards, it has Mahomes at over under 30.5, and then Hurts is 40.5. But I mean, easily Mahomes could have more. Like because there's a lot of ways.
I don't think Hurts would go over that unless he breaks one.
Right.
But I think Mahomes. I'm just picturing how the game could go, where Mahomes is going to be. So I don't know. They're both going to put it on the line this time because in the last couple of games, on a few read options, I've been irritated with Hurts pulling the ball on a read option and then sliding. But and now he was basically dead to rights somewhere right around the line of scrimmage. But I think in this game he might fight for yards.
Yeah,
and not just automatically slide. I mean, there's nothing left. There's no preserving. Like you get what
for sure. I think both of them will. I think the thing for me is that both defenses are good and don't really give up long runs very often. So that to me was another thing. But I just think I've seen it too many times. Well, I think Hurts will run more in the game. Like they'll have more called runs for that. But I've seen it too many times where Mahomes just suddenly takes off and it's like he covers a lot of ground and it's wide open, and that absolutely happens more than it does, So so I think just because it pays the 2-1, it's significantly more. So that's the other bet I'm gonna have is Mahomes more rushing yards than Hurts, just straight up, which I thought was interesting. And then I got another one for you. Okay, who's gonna have more receiving yards, Kelsey or AJ Brown?
Okay, so this I really was unclear what to do with all of the receivers.
Yeah,
because the Chiefs have proven that it doesn't matter. Somebody Smith-Schuster had 60 yards last game, and then Worthy showed up, but Kelsey had 2 catches. So at least on the Chiefs side, but then DeAndre Hopkins got nothing. Hollywood Brown got nothing. So it's. I think the Chiefs, the way they play, and Mahomes is good enough. He'll just put it on whoever happens to be there. He doesn't need it to be any one guy.
Nope.
And we've seen it can be anyone, and it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be Kelsey. So I have no idea what to do with any of the receiving stuff there, because I think any of those guys could be the guy. Just like Worthy was one game, Smith-Schuster, and Worthy carried the load last game. Before that, it was Kelsey. So I have no idea what to think, and I could totally see Hopkins. There could be some value with Hopkins. Like I could see him going off. Yeah.
Okay. So you're making my point here where I'm leaning with this.
There we go.
If you pick on Philly, a receiver who's for sure going to catch a ball, is AJ Brown the top of your list?
Has to be.
Right. So for that reason, the Kelsey versus AJ Brown, I'm taking AJ Brown all day long for all the points I just made, because the Worthy could have a big game. The Kareem Hunt could have a big game. There's a lot of ways that Kelsey doesn't have a lot of receiving yards. So for that, I feel really good about the AJ Brown one. So that's another one of my prop ones, AJ Brown, because the thing that made it tough was when I was looking at this, there was like, who has the more receiving yards, Kelsey or Goddard? And I'm like, oh, that's tough. Like, I don't know.
Tough.
But then right beside it was Kelsey versus AJ Brown. I'm like, oh, like that, because it pays the same. And I was like, oh, I feel way better about AJ Brown for all the stuff you said, because Kansas City, like they will happily win this game without throwing to Kelsey. Like that can absolutely happen. Whereas I'll be surprised if Philly does well and does not throw to Brown. Does that make sense? Like that was that
Philly's had games where they didn't have to, but I think in this game they're going to have to have a balanced attack the way they did last game.
Yeah, for sure.
But I could see Smith being right there too.
Devontae Smith?
Yeah.
Do you like him? So that was another one. Wasn't going to pull the trigger on it. Who's going to accumulate more receiving yards, Devontae Smith or Worthy?
Oh, jeez.
That's like right there.
Again, it's two up in. I would tend towards Smith over Worthy only because the Eagles really do need those three to hit Goddard, Brown and Smith. Whereas again, Worthy could get 100 or Worthy could get none, and it could end up on Smith-Schuster. It could end up on it could end up on so many different people on that team, and we've seen it happen that way, right? So it's not. I don't know. It's just not obvious. It's just not obvious how it has to go for the Chiefs. That's another thing that puts it slightly in the Chiefs' favor in the way I'm seeing it. Is they can win with so many different people catching it.
I know.
It just keeps turning out that way.
And it really reminds me of the Bills game, right? Where as soon as Elam went in, they're like, we're going after that guy. And it didn't matter who lined up there, right? Like it was just, and so that is a classic Chiefs, the modus operandi, right? So so if there's someone on Philly who gets injured, or even if there's like one of the starters they don't like, then they're going to whoever's lined up against them. Doesn't matter who it is, right?
Yeah.
So
do you have anything you're looking at?
So that was no. So just a last point before we move on. So receiving yards, to your point, Juju Smith-Schuster over under 14.5.
Again, though, it's like it could be he could catch nothing, or he could go off for 80. It all depends on how it looks.
I know it's super low, but I was tempted to take it because for all the things you just talked about. But like again, he could be gone. Like it could easily be 0 too, right? So so that's really tough. All right, what was your next one?
Well, what do you have for do you have anything you want to do for rushing on the running backs? Besides the quarterbacks?
Okay, so over under 115.5 yards, Barkley.
It's kind of a lot.
It's kind of a lot.
Against this defense, it's a lot.
I know, but they're going to be feeding it to him, like they're.
Yeah, but the Chiefs never give up 100-yard rusher. I mean, now we're talking about a very specific person and a very good rushing team.
Yeah.
But we're also talking about one of the best rushing defenses.
Yep.
But to be fair, they've been giving up over 140 yards on the ground in the playoffs. But again, you're talking about quarterbacks gaining some of that yards too.
And Barkley's, how much has he averaged the last 3 playoff games? Like it's been a lot.
Yeah, but he's broken some huge ones.
I know. It could happen.
Does that ever happen to the Chiefs?
Not often, but But here's one that I was also
put it this way: if he goes over that, the Eagles are winning.
I think so. I
don't know. If the Chiefs give up 130 yards to Barkley, if you picture the way that has to have happened, they're doing something like the Eagles have solved something if he can go off for that much, because Hurts is going to do another 30-ish on top of that.
Yeah, I looked at it as if they keep Barkley to 115, that's a win for KC. Like that's controlling him. That's how I looked at it. Because you're not going to keep him under 100, I don't think. But it's
I said over.
But anyway, I don't.
It's tough. I don't kind of.
Well, then you'd be that one's tough. Okay, so how about this one? The rushing yards, Xavier Worthy over under 6.5.
I kind of but that's if he hits one of those end arounds or those.
They're going to do at least one, right?
Like I want to take over that.
Yeah, me too. I feel pretty good about the over there because I think they're going to do it at least once, and I think it's good for 6.5 yards. So because that's why they do it like that. But no, I mean the other rushing ones are too hard. So like the Kareem Hunt over under 45.5 yards. I think it's like right there.
I would actually take that over versus he seems to be getting the bulk
more
of the work now over Pacheco. I was reading an article about it. Seems like that's the direction. But again, Pacheco could have a good game, but they've only given it to him. I think it said 5 times in the last 2 games each.
I know.
Like it's really Hunt's the lead back now.
Yeah, but I haven't seen him get that many. Like 45.5 is, I feel like it's right there. Rushing yards for Pacheco is 23.5, which I think is sort of right there too.
They're both right there.
Yeah, so none of them, and the same thing with the rushing yards for Mahomes is over under 30.5, which I feel like that's pretty right there too. So the short answer to your question is none of the rushing things really jumped out at me other than the worthy over 6.5, just because I'm pretty sure they'll do at least one, maybe two end arounds. So
yeah.
And then Barkley was 115, and then Hurts was 40.5.
That's a lot. I would, again, it just takes one.
I know, but they're going to be running. They're calling quarterback runs with him, right? Like
I think a lot of his yards will come in the red zone, like as usual. Lot. I mean, it'll be 3 here, a tush push there, but whatever it is, it'll be mostly down there. Yeah. But again, if he just breaks one, he'll get all 40 of that in like 1 or 2 plays. So, but it's just, again, the Chiefs don't really have people go off like that for long gains on them.
Over under receiving yards for Kareem Hunt, 6.5.
No, I don't know.
Yeah,
do they even throw it to him? Not much.
Sometimes
it'll be a swing pass here or there.
Yeah. So, but and then there was is someone going to make an interception? They had a couple of these.
No, I'd stay away from all that stuff. What about total tackles for Bon?
I don't think I had that one. Did you have something like that?
I think it was like 10 or 10.5 they had him at.
Wow,
it was a really big number they had him at.
Over under, at least 1 sack for Karlaftis. Yes or no? And it's like pretty much even money. That's
I think he'll get 1, but the over under's right at 1.
Yeah, so you could say like, will he make 1 sack? And it's you bet yes or no. So at least 1 sack. So if you think it's going to be 1,
a yes on
the yes
1.
on that.
Yeah,
let me write that one down. I feel pretty. Like, I mean, he's been unstoppable. And like you said, people have to focus on Jones. So like he's more.
Yeah. The game plan revolves around dealing with Jones, and then Karlaftis is feasting because of it. I mean, he's good, but it really, really helps when the offense is focused.
And we feel good about the worthy over the 6.5 too, right? The rushing.
Yeah.
All right.
That's just a matter of does it hit or not. That number could be 2, 3, 4. It could be 1. He's either going to get stopped at the line of scrimmage, or it's going to go for some decent amount of yards.
The total number of field goals. What's going to be the distance to the longest successful field goal of the match? Over under 49.5 yards.
Over.
Really? I think there'll for sure be at least 150 plus field goal in the match. Wow.
Yeah. Points are going to be at a premium in this game.
Okay.
So I think, and also weather shouldn't be. There's no weather problem here, so it's not like that's good. That won't be factoring into, I don't know, I want to kick it from this far away sort of thing.
Yeah. The only other thing that I had that was interesting was they had some like who's going to score a touchdown, or at least 1 touchdown. And so I had, hold on, let me find it here. So I had, it was Kelsey scores at least 1 touchdown, and it paid 2 to 1. So I feel good about that because I think he's going to get a touchdown. I think he's good for that.
But they can win without him scoring a touchdown.
Yeah, I know, but I mean,
I don't think the Eagles can win without either Hurts or Barkley scoring 1.
No, well, that's probably a good point. Yeah, Barkley doesn't hardly pays anything.
Right, exactly. I guess you're right. You're going for the value. Okay, so for 2 to 1, sure. Yeah. Something on Kelsey. There's at least some value there. What about? Do you have the MVP numbers there?
Oh yeah, hold on.
Because I think there is some value. I think there's more value on some of the different players on Kansas City because you just don't know who's going to go off.
Yeah, fair enough. Some of these pay a crazy amount. So Mahomes is sort of even money. Barkley pay goes up. Hurts is a 2 to 1, and then Kelsey is like 6 to 1, and then Worthy, AJ Brown, Kareem Hunt, Chris Jones.
What's
Jones? Yeah,
AJ Brown.
For that's like you pay $2 and you get back 27. So it's like that's 12 to 1.
That's not bad because he could be. I mean, as far as value goes, obviously the highest likelihood it's the highest likelihood is Mahomes, Hurts, or Barkley is the highest likelihood, but those are the ones that are going to pay the worst.
Yeah.
But like Like, what's the number on Xavier Worthy?
24. So that's like 12 to 1 or something like that.
Kind of the same as really the same as AJ Brown?
A little bit less. So that's more likely that it's
really
Worthy than AJ Brown, because I'm
interesting.
Yeah. Because I think that you could have a running and receiving touchdown, I think is sort of what they're thinking there. Which would be a reason why you would get it. That'd be my guess.
I mean, it could. So, what's the number on Smith-Schuster? That's got to be big, right? But I'm just saying, what if he goes off? What if he goes off for 4 or 5 catches, but 2 of them are TDs? Like, that's possible. It doesn't need to be a lot, but it could be the catches that win the game.
Okay, this one's a little so I'm going to read you the whole list because Smith-Schuster isn't on it.
Oh, he's not.
Okay, and then there's like any other player bet.
Oh well, okay. Depends what site you're. I was on DraftKings. There is a number for him on DraftKings.
Yeah. So again, who will win the MVP? So it's Mahomes, Barkley, Hurts. This is an order of odds too.
Yeah.
So Mahomes is like even money. Barkley's just a little bit more than that. Then Hurts is like 2 to 1, which is actually probably not bad. Because if they win, it's him throwing and running for 1 is likely. So that's not bad. Then things really jump up at Kelsey, Worthy, AJ Brown, Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt and Chris Jones are almost even money, but not even money, but they're like, it's 20 to 1 kind of thing. Devontae Smith, Jalen Carter, Philadelphia, Marquise Brown, Kansas City, Pacheco, Goddard, Karlaftis, and then any other player is like 12 to 1. Like you bet $2, you get back 25.
But
that's a lot on that list that wouldn't get it.
There's I mean, you're really stretching when you get past that first few. I would put. See, I could see it being somebody like Smith-Schuster or any of those. Anybody. It's almost like any of the receivers on the Chiefs could be the one just for this game.
Yeah.
So there might be value there versus like how deep do you have to go on the Eagles roster? I don't think past Brown, Smith, and Goddard, I don't really think there's another receiving threat that's gonna really factor in that's even worth sprinkling money on.
No, they're the only ones on here too on the list.
I'm sure on a more comprehensive site you can find even more, but I just don't. That's just too far. So I would stay away from. I don't know. I have no real sense. I think Kelsey with 2 to 1 is probably the better bet out of those top few.
Yeah. I mean, it's the. I would take, if I had to take a flyer, I'd probably take a flyer on Chris Jones or Carter. Just for
the extra value.
Yeah. Well, just for like this could be like a 17-14 game or something like that. And if someone has 2 or 3 sacks and like a forced fumble or something, like that'd be.
It'd have to be that. It would have to be like, and maybe even recover the fumble or something like that.
So like something like that could happen. I think that it's,
my only reluctance to do that
moreover, like, because if we bet on AJ Brown or if we bet on Worthy, let's say, right, that means Worthy has to have like 150 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns or something, but beat out Mahomes for MVP.
You're right. You're right.
So Mahomes would have to have like 190 yards throwing and 2 TDs.
Actually, there might be a little bit of flaw in my logic that anybody I would pick on the Chiefs other than Mahomes has to have received the ball from Mahomes. Yeah. So how is they would have to have a ridiculously good game for it to not just, because Mahomes is going to have the stat on the other side of that, right?
With the only exception being Worthy. That'd be the only one that I would place the bet on because he could have like
some rushing
75-yard end around for a TD plus like 70 yards receiving. And then Mahomes has not a below average day, but that's like 150 yards for Worthy and 2 TDs. Like that'd be the way to do it. So
my only reluctance for betting on Jones is he influences the game whether or not he has any stats. He's going to absorb so much attention that's part of how that defense is so good. Now he still gets his numbers, even though he's double teamed constantly and all of the attention's on how to manage his influence at the line. So it's like he impacts the game in a way where he doesn't necessarily appear on the stat sheet, but when you watch how the game's unfolding, the whole thing revolves around how do we handle that guy. So it's hard for him to accumulate. And again, the MVP, even though he might put in a performance that the whole thing did revolve around him, it might not be something they vote on because it can't point to like one thing that happened. Yeah. Instead, it's more like if you ask the Eagles, you're like, oh yeah, the entire game we were just dealing with him the whole time. It's like you don't get the MVP for influencing the game plan, which that would be cool if you could.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And The last thing I'll say about that is that Mahomes and Hurts are really good at avoiding sacks. And so
to keep them off the stat sheet.
It'd be really tough to, I'll be surprised if a defensive player for either team sacks Mahomes or Hurts like 3 times, kind of a thing, like themselves. Like
one guy, or you mean total sacks?
One guy.
Yeah.
I think, 3 sacks, I think is possible, unlikely, but that's actually another one of the bets here. You could have total sacks. I think you can bet on too.
Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't. Again, that could also be a matter of just getting past the line, and it could have been a sack thing.
Total sacks made. Okay, so total number of sacks by both teams over under 5.5
for the game.
Yeah,
that sounds like exactly where it's going to be.
I know. And then
I keep saying that, but that's obviously why they put it there. That's
these people know what they're doing. Number of sacks made by Kansas City over under 2.5. Total number of sacks made by Philadelphia over under 2.5.
God, it just sounds like it's
right there.
Right,
I could see it being on 2.
I could see.
And then going in the fourth quarter, and you're like, I don't know if we're going to get the third or not. I don't know.
You know what? Let's take the over for the game.
The more than 5.5.
Yeah, for the game, because I could kind of see 3 and 3, but I could see just one bad series where they get 2 on either team, and it only takes one bad series and they kind of shake it off, and it's not like a consistent thing. You're right. They can get out of trouble, but we're talking about 2 of the best defenses in the league that can.
But you feel better on the more than 5.5 other than the under.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, because both quarterbacks will move. Yep. They'll get out of there, but they do get caught on the move too. So it's So it's just, I don't know. They're not. Put it this way: they're not going to be. My logic here, it could sound wrong because I just said they're both really good at moving. I guess the alternative is they're not going to be just quick to get rid of it. Like, there's nothing here. They're going to extend and see if they can get more.
Yeah.
Whereas like a statue in the pocket, like Matt Ryan or Cousins is like, I'm out of here. Just throw the ball, get it out of here. Sort of thing. I mean, now you could say that those guys are easier to sack, but they also might be quicker to just get rid of it and not extend the play. So the longer they hold the ball, the more they're susceptible to getting sacked while they're looking downfield. And again, they both, and specifically Mahomes, scramble to throw.
Yeah.
But so does Hurts. Hurts has gotten a lot better at that. So they linger behind the line of scrimmage for a while. Now they're also really good at getting rid of the ball. So I have no idea. I'm just thinking we're talking about 2 really, really good defenses.
I know there's 2 that's what I keep coming back to. Like they're both QBs are good at avoiding sacks. Both, like at least with the Eagles, they call running plays for the running back, which would also make it harder to sack them. And but they're, it is a Super Bowl. They are going to try and extend plays. They might take a sack more than they would normally in this case, potentially. And at the end of the day, I lean toward a lower scoring game.
They also might be reluctant to put the ball in harm's way if it just doesn't feel right and they can't quite escape the pocket. There's I don't know. I'm trying. Obviously, I'm talking myself into this one. I just can't. I mean, man, like 5 total sacks in this game sounds tiny for these defenses, but man, these quarterbacks are good.
Yep.
Well, we'll go with 6 and we'll go with over 5.5 and see what happens.
All right. That's it for the prop bets for me. I don't. Do you have anything else?
No, that's it. I mean, overall, if both teams, okay, you want to do the A game?
Sure.
Both teams show up at their A game. I mean, a offense game, a defense game. So they don't, and they don't shoot themselves in the foot with a dumb turnover.
Yeah.
Who wins, A game versus A game?
It finishes in a tie, I think. Officially, it's
it just never ends.
21-21. Yeah, that's my answer.
Never ends. Yeah, I don't know. There's it's so, this is just feels just like the Chiefs Bills game where it's one team's a little bit better at one thing than the other team,
and the Baltimore game too. There's just two really good teams. The special teams could decide something. A turnover.
That's the thing where the Chiefs have had the edge for a while now. Yeah, they've been more kick return yards, more punt return yards. They've been
make a difference
blocking kicks that at a frequency that doesn't seem like luck. There's something's going on there.
Yeah. So that's what it's going to be something that you couldn't see coming, either like a special teams play or a weird block or turnover, like a really bad turnover or something. I think that'll be one of the differences because I mean, it just feels like both teams are good. The
you think it could come down to just a breakdown on special teams somewhere?
Yeah, I do. I really think, like, I think this could be similar again to the Buffalo Baltimore and the Buffalo Kansas City game, where it's like both teams are in a position to win it, and then all of a sudden there's like a stop on 4th down or something like that, and then one team wins by a field goal, and it's
okay. So there's something you just said. Do you think the Eagles' efficiency or proficiency with the tush push on 4th down could be an edge because they never miss on that, whereas the Chiefs actually stopped the Bills a few times on tush push type plays, and nobody stops the Eagles on that play. It's almost like they get this. They only really need to gain 9-ish yards in 3 plays, and then you're gonna get it on the 4th down.
Yeah, I agree with you. Other than the fact that most people didn't stop Buffalo before the Kansas City game either.
That's a good point too.
Like that was Allen would get it most of the time, and you're right. The Philly gets it most of the time. That's why Jones is such an unbelievable player, because they can put him at D tackle, and it's really hard to beat him, even with the tush push in that one. So no, I think that's going to be one of the exciting things. Like, okay, so here's the overall things I'm looking forward to. Like, I want to see if how many yards Barkley has against Kansas City. If the Kansas City's defense is good, I could see him running, getting his 115 yards, seeing if that happens. I'm excited to see if Philly converts on 4th down with a really good defensive line from Kansas City, and seeing if that happens. And I'm excited to see if Mahomes gets, if they're down by a score and he gets a possession at the end, if he can lead them back to win. Right. So like those are I'm excited to see that. And I'm excited to see if I've crapped on Philly's passing game most of the season, and last game they proved me wrong.
It showed up. Yeah.
We got to see that again, in order for if they've got the running game and AG Brown cooking, then that's with the 3P won't happen. So it's more of like those. I'm really excited to see those matchups. Kansas City has to run the ball a little bit just in order to keep Philly honest, because you don't want to just start dropping back to pass against that defense, because that would be bad. So
the only spot on the field where I think there might be a clear advantage probably is Eagles offensive line. I would say is better than the Chiefs offensive line.
Yeah.
But I put both of their defensive lines kind of the same.
Yeah, they're both.
So in that case, you'd say the Eagles have an advantage over the Chiefs offensive line in general, and the Eagles running game.
Yes,
I guess partly because of their O-line.
Yeah, and partly because
is better. Whereas the Chiefs run game is limited. It's just obviously limited.
Yeah.
So that could
Mahomes,
be. But then they have Mahomes that makes up for that deficiency.
A lot. Yeah, because Mahomes is better than Hurts.
Oh yeah, 100. Yes, totally.
Yeah,
but he's overcoming some of the deficiencies of his O-line, which I would say is all wrapped up in the running game not being as powerful as it could be. Mm-hmm. So it's that's where it just evens itself back out again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It's not obvious.
No, and I think that's why the spread is so low. And I feel the more I think about it, the more I feel really good about the Worthy pick for the rushing, because again, it's going to be on turf, and they'll want to maximize he'll be lightning fast on turf. So I think that'll be good.
All right. So I don't know. That's it. Do you have anything else?
No, that's it. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's been again. It's some years the conference championships or the semifinals are significantly better games than the Super Bowl, but this feels like one year where it's not that.
I don't think so.
This could be just as good a game as the other ones.
Yeah. And we're taking, so besides all the prop bets and all that other stuff, we're just taking the Chiefs to cover. For me, it comes all the way down to, if the ball's in Mahomes' hands, I just trust him to win the game.
Yep. Yeah, I won't feel comfortable betting against Mahomes in this scenario.
No. Yep. Makes sense.
That's it. But I won't be surprised if Philly wins, and if they, they'll have a good running game and enough passing to keep Kansas City off, honest. So,
All right. Well, come back to the channel after the Super Bowl and see if we need to eat our words on any of this, or if any of these bets worked out.
Are you going to point that out to me if I'm wrong again?
100%. Yep. Right. Okay. So we'll catch you later.